Welcome to Aging Insight with your host, John Ross and Lisa Scholmeyer. This program is made possible by
Welcome to another edition of Aging Insight. I'm your host, John Ross, here with Lisa Scholmeyer, and we are elder law attorneys right here in your community. And as elder law attorneys, we help seniors and people with disabilities navigate through the maze that is the health, housing, financial, and legal process of getting older and maintaining your independence. We know people that, generally they want to stay at home, they want to stay independent, they don't want to be a burden on others, and they want to protect and preserve those limited resources that they've been able to save over their lifetime. We know that you can do that. We know that you can live on your own terms the way you want to. We also know, though, that you're going to need information, and a lot of it, because there's a lot of different things out there that all start coming into play. There's taxes and laws and government benefits and all of these different things, and if you are not fully versed in everything and you're not getting the right advice from the right people, then you might mess it up, and that mistake could cost a bunch.
Yeah.
So that's why we do the show. We're here to talk about some of those things.
Well, that's right, John. And with our group in our community that we serve, particularly, of course we serve all ages, but we often visit with folks who are thinking about retirement, who have recently retired, or maybe they've been retired for a long time. But I would say, John, that the vast majority of the folks we visit with in their retirement and about their retirement, Social Security is a huge pillar in their financial stability in retirement. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Absolutely. For the vast majority of Americans, Social Security, particularly retired Americans, Social Security is their single biggest source of income. Most companies don't offer pensions anymore, traditional pensions, unless you work for the federal government. But so Social Security makes up the bulk of the livelihood for many older adults. In fact, women in particular rely on Social Security as their primary source of income in far greater numbers than men. And so protecting and preserving and maximizing Social Security can be probably the key to the independence and the financial security for many, many older Americans, particularly women.
Yes, John. And I know I looked at this statistic at one time. In our service area, the average Social Security check is around $1,100, $1,200. And that's the average. I've certainly met a number of particularly ladies, like you were speaking with, who maybe their own Social Security checks were quite small because they spent a lot of time out of the workforce raising children, or they had jobs that were not nearly as high paying as maybe a husband that had. And so for a lot of ladies, their own Social Security checks based on their own earnings records runs, I would say, closer to about $600 or $700 a month, which when you talk about financial independence, doesn't quite fit the bill.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And so particularly when we're talking about women, and not just women, but although it does overly impact them, Social Security is a big thing, and there's a couple of different factors with Social Security that we get questions on quite often, and that relates to Social Security and how it relates to divorce situations and how it relates to death situations. And we're going to try to cover some of those today and maybe answer a few of those questions. But, like with many things, it's usually a good idea to give a quick little refresher. For Social Security, in order to be eligible for Social Security, you had to have first paid into the system or be married to somebody who paid into the system. But regardless, the earliest you can take Social Security is 62. And then at 62, you would get about 80% of your full retirement benefit. So whatever Social Security would send you, If you start at 62, they're only going to send you about 80% of that amount. Every year that you wait, you get a little bit more until you reach full retirement age, which for most people who are approaching retirement right now is going to be somewhere between 66 and 67. At full retirement age, you get 100% of your benefit. And if you keep waiting and don't take it at full retirement age, every year after that, you get an 8% increase in your benefit until you reach age 70. And at age 70, you will get 130% of your benefit. And so, depending on who you are, whether your income and things, it might make sense to take it at 62. It might wait and take it at 66. It might make sense to go ahead and wait all the way to 70. But that's not really the topic today.
No.
Particularly what we're talking about, in large part with women, is especially if they have not paid into the system.
Right.
They can either take, generally with Social Security, you can take your own benefit, or you can take 1/2 of a spouse's benefit, whichever is greater.
Right. So we do have a lot of ladies that didn't pay into the system that are retired or retiring, and so they don't really have a claim of their own to make. So they have to determine if they can claim on a spouse, a deceased spouse, or even an ex-spouse. And I think we'll talk about those different claims when we come back from the break. But John, real quick before the break, I want to emphasize to our viewers that if you go to the Social Security office and you ask, and you have an appointment and you ask the person who works at the Social Security office, what the best thing for you to do is, they're not really supposed to tell you how to file it the best way. And John, I think a lot of people are confused. They think that going to the Social Security office is where they get the advice and get the help to determine this.
Right, when in fact, page one, top of the page of the Social Security Workers Manual, their employee guide, what they're supposed to follow. Page 1, top of the page, says do not provide any advice on how to do it. Simply take the information and process it, and that is all.
Right. So if a lady goes to the Social Security office and she says she wants to file a claim and she wants to file it this way, the clerk is supposed to process it.
That's right.
Just like that. Even if there's a potential that if the claimant waits just another month or two, or does something a little bit different, even if they could increase their Social Security benefit by doing it a little bit differently, the clerk at the Social Security office is not supposed to provide that type of advice. They're just supposed to follow your instructions. So this program would be great for our viewers to learn some information, so that way if they go to the Social Security office, they can
do it right.
They can do it right. That's right. So stick back with us. We'll be back after the break.
At Advantage Senior Care, our goal is for seniors to stay home longer, stay healthy, and above all, stay happy. Introducing the Independence Check. A trained caregiver will visit your loved one in the comfort of their home, providing assistance with medicines, meal prep, caring companionship, and more.
Miss Smith, I just stopped by your dad's. He's taking his medicine and doing great.
See how an Independence Check can make all the difference in your loved one's day. Call Advantage Senior Care today.
The Wadley Senior Clinic has been such a blessing for our family. Because they specialize in geriatric care, they take the time to really focus on Dad's needs. Their exam rooms are specially designed for seniors, and they offer lab and x-ray on site. With monthly educational programs on health and wellness of the mind and body, our healthcare questions get answered. Best of all, they accept Dad's Medicare benefits. See what the Wadley Senior Clinic can do for you. Wadley Senior Clinic, where healthy relationships begin.
Welcome back to Aging in Sight. I'm Lisa Scholmeyer, and I'm here with John Ross. And today I would say we're talking about one of the hottest topics with seniors and retirees, and that is Social Security. So John, we talked about before our first break that Social Security is so important to the financial independence and stability of a lot of retirees, particularly for ladies, because a lot of times their own Social Security records are their earnings are a lot smaller. So one of the questions we frequently get has to do with whether a lady can she file a claim on Social Security on an ex-spouse or a deceased spouse. Is it better to do so rather than claim on her own earnings record? And there's some rules. I guess, John, let's talk about a divorced lady first. Sure. And there's some rules about claiming on an ex-spouse's record. And we'll say here that we'll assume that the ex-spouse is still living and breathing.
That's right.
We'll go with that.
That's right. Well, so generally speaking, if you are married to somebody for at least 10 years, then if you divorce that person after the 10 years, once you get to full retirement age, you can either claim your Social Security benefit, or you can claim an amount equal to 1/2 of their Social Security benefit, whichever is the bigger one. And so for many people that can be, especially again if you were a non-working spouse or a lower wage earner, it may be much more financially beneficial to get the larger half of the prior spouse's benefit. Now, a couple of things on this. One, in order to claim an ex-spouse's benefit, when I say claim an ex-spouse, you're not actually taking anything away from the ex-spouse. Maybe you're concerned about that, maybe you're not. But regardless, it doesn't reduce that person. Lisa, I had a gentleman come into the office one day. He was mad as a hornet. And he was mad as a hornet because he had just found out that his ex-wife that he had divorced 20 years ago was getting some of his Social Security.
Right.
And the reason he was so mad is because he thought he was going to be getting more and that she was taking part of it.
Right. He was under the misimpression that her claim reduced his own Social Security benefit, but that's not true. If an ex-spouse files on their former spouse's Social Security, it does not affect that ex at all.
That's right. So if I were to get, say, $2,000 a month for Social Security and had an ex-spouse, that ex-spouse could claim half, $1,000, and I still get the $2,000.
Right.
In fact, if I had 5 ex-spouses that I had been married to that I had been married to for 10 years apiece, because again, I have to be married to them for at least 10 years. But each of those ex-spouses could claim an amount equal to 1/2 of my benefit. So each of them could be receiving that $1,000. I still get my $2,000.
Right.
So that's the first thing. Now, if you are that spouse and you're claiming this benefit, one thing is you have to not be remarried. So this is for single ladies who are claiming on an ex-spouse. If you get married, you lose that. Lisa, I've got a story for everything.
You do.
Yeah. Well, I had a lady one time, and she was in her late 60s, early 70s, and she came in to talk about getting a will done, and she brought a gentleman that she said she introduced him as her husband, but as we got to talking, he was not, in fact, her husband. And the reason he was not her husband was because this gentleman was about 40 years old.
Mm-hmm. Was not yet retired, had
not yet retired, and she was actually receiving a Social Security benefit based on an ex-spouse, which she would have lost had she remarried. And so they were living in sin.
Okay. That Social Security aspect, it does confuse a lot of people. And John, one other issue here on ex-spouses has to do with if you remarry, you lose the benefit. Mm-hmm. But if you pull a Zsa Zsa Gabor and you divorce the next guy, you can actually go back and pick up Social Security on any of your ex-spouses. You can only get one benefit, but I'd pick the highest earning past ex-spouse to claim on. And
right, if that second spouse, if you divorce the second spouse, or if that second spouse dies, you can claim from either of the two ex-spouses. And this brings up a couple of things, especially when it comes to the divorce and remarriage. First of all, if you're in a marriage that is not doing well, get counseling, and hopefully don't get divorced. On the other hand, if you are that low earner spouse and you're looking at divorce, see if you can't push it to a little bit farther than 10 years.
And that's just such a jaded way to look at things. But I have met with people who were married for nearly 10 years, and they did seek a divorce, get that divorce finalized, and then realized later that in their retirement years that had a huge impact because they could not claim on that spouse.
That extra couple of months could have made a big difference.
Right.
Yeah. So and as far as that goes, we also see a lot of folks who maybe have had had that divorce in the past, and now later in life, maybe even into their retirement years, they are contemplating a second marriage. Mm-hmm. You understand that second marriage is going to have a financial implication when it comes to Social Security. It may be more beneficial because you may be able to get a larger benefit from this new spouse than you were getting from the old one. But it's certainly something to consider in all of this, because especially if your means are limited, that marriage could cause a financial burden that you weren't anticipating.
Right, and so I don't know how we got into the marriage advice world, but we're just looking at one tiny little component of it, and that is how marriage impacts Social Security. Obviously, a marriage decision is made up of many more things, but hey, you need information, and that's what Aging Insight is about. So we'll take another break, and we'll come back and talk about some of the issues surrounding claiming Social Security on a deceased spouse. So stick with us.
As things get older, they require more care. This car and I have seen a lot of miles together, but because I take care of her, she runs just like she did in 1955. That's why I chose the Wadley Senior Clinic, with an individualized care plan designed just for me and a convenient location off Jefferson Avenue. They have everything to keep me running like new. It's not about the miles, it's about the journey. Let the Wadley Senior Clinic keep you happy, healthy, and cruising down the road of life.
At Advantage Senior Care, our goal is for seniors to stay home longer, stay healthy, and above all, stay happy. Our individualized plans are tailored to your loved one's needs, from meal preparation, shopping, and light housekeeping to bathing and dressing, mobility assistance, and companionship. Our trained caregivers will help maintain your loved one's independence while providing you with peace of mind. See how our family can help yours. Trust our locally owned and family-operated senior care service. Call Advantage Senior Care today.
Welcome back to Aging Insight. I'm John Ross here with Lisa Scholmeyer, and today we're talking about Social Security benefits, but in particular, Social Security benefits and how they relate to divorce and death. Well, we've kind of talked about divorce. Not a great topic.
No.
Not really
Don't
a
like
lot
it,
of fun,
yeah.
and really not any fun to talk about death either. But it's part of the deal. You don't have to get divorced. You do have to die. It's going to happen, and Social Security and death, that's a bigger issue here as well, because again, if you're that non-earning spouse or that low-earning spouse, then being able to seek a higher Social Security benefit can be, I bet somebody asks me in the office every week, sometimes multiple times a week, if my husband dies, am I going to get his Social Security?
Right. And the answer to that question is yes, but.
It's a good lawyer answer.
It's a great lawyer answer. So, when a spouse passes away, statistically, Men typically pass away, the same age group, men pass away earlier, and that's how come there's so many more ladies at the retirement community. And the claim on Social Security, if you go to Social Security, of course they know that your spouse has passed away because they're advised of that through the Medicare system and all the other systems we have in place. But you can ask them to calculate the Social Security that you would receive now that your spouse is deceased based on that other person's earnings. So, if we had a gentleman husband who passed away, who worked 40 years out at the plant, worked his way up into a management job, if he was receiving $2,200 a month in Social Security, then his widow can claim on his Social Security and receive an $1,100 benefit. And many times, especially in our area, even half of the higher earning spouse's Social Security is more monthly income than the lady's Social Security based on her own earnings record. So, but it is something you have to look at as ladies enter the workforce in greater numbers and achieve their own careers and earnings. Sometimes those numbers, sometimes the ladies have to stay on their own Social Security to have the higher benefit, but that's still a little rare right now.
Right. But when that higher earning spouse dies, the surviving spouse, at that point they can either take their Social Security based on their own work record, or now they can get 100% of their deceased spouse. So in Lisa's example, where we had the gentleman that was making $2,200 a month, while he was alive, his wife was receiving half, or $1,100 a month. At his death, the wife's Social Security goes away, and now she's receiving a full $2,100. So the household income in total has gone down.
Right, in total.
But she is sort of getting his Social Security. It's just that she lost what she was getting in the process.
Right. So when we tell a person the answer is yes, but and this is very frustrating to many people, because they felt like, hey, my spouse paid in the system, I paid in the system, why can't we continue to receive both payments? But that's just not how the system works. So you're going to go down to one Social Security payment. You just want to make sure it's the highest payment that you can get.
Yeah, and kind of like as we were talking about with the divorce, if you have a spouse you're married to who has died, you remarried, and that spouse has died, you have your choice of picking between either of the two prior spouses and getting whichever of theirs is the largest between the two. So you can pick from some of these others and get that survivor benefit from all of those.
Yes, so it's a very complicated area. And John, there had been some, I guess you would call, creative filing methods on Social Security that, if you look at the internet, there's still a lot of internet material out there about file and suspend, or filing a restricted application for Social Security. All of those, that's bad information now. So if you run across any of that, those rules have been changed, and those filing methods are.
Those are gone. There are still a couple of things that that lower earning spouse can still claim one half of their spouse's benefit at age 62 if their other spouse is already at retirement age, and then switch to their own record at full retirement age. And so there is still a little bit that you can do there. The other thing to understand with Social Security, I had a husband and wife come in the other day, and the husband said, you know what, I'm 61. I'm going to be 62 here pretty soon. I've had strokes. I've had heart problems. I've got diabetes. I'm going to die soon. And he said, so I better, if I'm going to see anything out of Social Security, I better hurry up and take it.
Right.
I'm going to take it at 62, and that way I get to see.
You get something.
I get something out of that. Well, as we talked, it was very clear that he was the working spouse, his wife was the stay-at-home spouse, and I explained to him that while he may never see it. That every month, every year that he delays taking it, that's going to increase his benefit. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that means when he does die, even though he never saw a dime of it, he increased the survivor benefit for that surviving spouse. So, I had to tell him, look, it's not all about you, man.
Right. Well, and that's a situation that if he had just gone down to the Social Security office and said, I want my Social Security, I'm 62, the clerk would have dutifully filed that claim.
Yep.
And started his Social Security. And of course, that clerk would never have told him that he had diminished his wife's claim for the rest of her life. And John, ladies live.
Yeah, and
typically
over 20 or 30 years, that
Yeah.
could be a whole lot.
It could be a whole lot of money. And I bet with his health issues, one of his big concerns was looking after his wife.
It was. And after our discussion, he decided that maybe taking that Social Security
Right.
early wasn't a good idea, and that they would just push that back a little ways.
Right.
So yeah, that's where you've got to get that good information. And of course, the way you get that good information is by doing things like watching Aging Insight. Of course, if we haven't told you everything you think you need to know, you can always call us during our live call-in radio show every Saturday at noon on 98.7 FM. You can also pick up a copy of our Aging Insight magazine, which has articles on Medicaid and veterans benefits and trusts and powers of attorney and all kinds of stuff. And you can go to aginginsight.com and you can watch older episodes, you can read transcripts of prior episodes, you can even go in there and search for terms. So if you want to learn about Social Security, you can type in search for Social Security and find an old episode where we talked about it.
Well, or find several old episodes where we touched on Social Security as a topic, and you can check them all out.
That's right. So get your information. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this week's Aging Insight program with John Ross and Lisa Scholmeyer. This program is made possible by